Hello, my dear friends. Let me start with a simple truth. Learning English is not about memorizing long lists of grammar rules or repeating boring phrases over and over. Many people think that to speak English well, they must be perfect. But the truth is, perfection kills communication. What really matters is confidence, practice, and connecting with people. English is a tool, a bridge. It is not a test. When I started learning English, I struggled a lot. I couldn't express myself clearly, and sometimes I felt embarrassed. But I realized that the real skill is not in knowing every word, but in communicating naturally, making people understand you, and enjoying the conversation. Everyday conversations are the foundation of language. You don't need fancy words to impress. You need clarity and courage. Today, I want to share with you something that can truly change the way you communicate and connect with people. Many people believe that speaking English naturally is a skill reserved only for those who have been born into it or for those who have studied it for many years. But I'm here to tell you that natural English speaking is not about perfection. It is not about memorizing hundreds of words or mastering every grammar rule. It is about confidence, practice, and the willingness to express yourself. Too often, people get stuck because they are afraid of making mistakes. They worry about pronunciation, or they believe they need to sound exactly like a native speaker. This kind of thinking stops people from speaking at all. But language is a bridge, a tool to connect with others, and it is meant to be used, not feared. When you approach English in this way, your journey becomes exciting, full of learning, and full of opportunities to grow. The first key point is listening more than speaking. Many learners think that speaking is the most important part of learning a language, but actually, listening is the foundation. When you listen carefully, you absorb the flow, the tone, the expressions that textbooks cannot teach you. You start noticing how people really talk in everyday situations, the phrases they use when they are happy, when they are joking, when they are serious. Listening opens a door to understanding culture, humor, and emotions behind words. I remember when I first tried to communicate with people in English. I spent hours just listening to conversations, watching movies, and following podcasts. I didn't speak much at first, but I was learning. Every word I heard, every sentence I absorbed, helped me build confidence and understanding. Listening is not passive. It is active learning, and it gives you a treasure of natural phrases that you can use when you start speaking. The second point is to speak like you are telling a story. People do not want to hear memorized phrases or perfect grammar. They want to feel connection. They want to be engaged, and they want to understand you clearly. When you share your experiences, your ideas, your challenges, and even your failures, your English becomes alive. Storytelling allows you to communicate naturally because your words have meaning. They have context and they carry emotion. Even simple words can sound powerful when delivered with confidence and feeling. When you tell a story, your listeners pay attention. They relate and they remember. Storytelling makes English not just a language, but a way to connect with people, to inspire them, and to leave a lasting impression. The third point is not to fear mistakes. Mistakes are not something to be ashamed of. They are the stepping stones of learning. Every time you say something wrong, you have a chance to correct it and to improve. Fear of mistakes often stops people from speaking. And when you stop speaking, you stop learning. I've seen many people hesitate because they want to be perfect. But perfection is the enemy of progress. Instead, laugh at your mistakes, see them as lessons, and keep speaking. The more mistakes you make, the faster you grow. And over time, you will notice that your fluency improves, your confidence grows, and your English becomes natural. Mistakes are signs of action, and action is what leads to results. The fourth point is to practice every day, even in small steps. Consistency is more important than intensity. You don't need to practice for hours at a time. 10 minutes every day, thinking in English, speaking to yourself, or repeating phrases is enough to make a difference. Small daily steps compound into huge improvements. English is like planting a tree. You water it every day. You nurture it, and eventually it grows strong and tall. Many people wait for the perfect moment, the perfect teacher, or the perfect environment. But the truth is, improvement comes from your daily effort. When you practice every day, your mind gets used to thinking in English. Your tongue becomes familiar with the words, and your confidence grows naturally. When you combine listening, storytelling, embracing mistakes, and daily practice, something remarkable happens. Your English stops being mechanical. It stops being something you think about too much, and it becomes a part of how you express yourself. Conversations start to flow. People understand you, and you feel more connected to the world around you. The key is to focus on communication, not perfection, to enjoy the process, and to see every conversation as an opportunity to improve. Natural English speaking is not about sounding like someone else. It is about expressing your ideas clearly, connecting with others genuinely, and having the courage to use the language even when it is imperfect. Today, I want to talk about something that many people struggle with but few truly understand, and that is how to speak English naturally in everyday conversations without feeling nervous or stressed. Most people believe that speaking English requires perfection, that you must know every grammar rule, pronounce every word correctly, and avoid mistakes at all costs. But the truth is, natural English speaking is not about perfection. It is about connection, understanding, and confidence. I have seen many people with excellent vocabulary struggle to communicate because they are too focused on being perfect instead of simply communicating their ideas. The goal is not to impress others with your words, but to make them understand you clearly and to enjoy the conversation along the way. English is a tool, a bridge, a way to open doors to new opportunities and relationships. And the more you use it, the stronger your skills become. One of the first things to understand is that listening is more powerful than speaking. Many learners spend hours practicing speaking, memorizing phrases, and worrying about grammar, but they forget the importance of listening. When you listen carefully, you learn the natural rhythm of English, the expressions people use, the way sentences flow, and even the emotions behind words. Listening helps you understand context, tone, humor, and cultural nuances that cannot be learned from a book. I remember when I first started learning English, I spent hours just listening to conversations, watching movies, and listening to radio programs. At first, I did not understand everything, but slowly my brain started to recognize patterns, phrases, and words that made sense. Listening is the foundation of natural speaking because it teaches you how language is actually used in real life. Another important tip is to treat English like storytelling. People do not remember lists of words or perfect sentences. They remember stories, experiences, and emotions. When you speak, imagine that you are telling a story about your day, your ideas, or something that happened to you. Storytelling allows your English to flow naturally because you are expressing yourself in a way that is meaningful and relatable. Even simple sentences become powerful when they carry a message or an emotion. When you share your thoughts as a story, people engage with you. They relate to your experience, and your words leave a lasting impression. Storytelling also reduces pressure because you are focused on communicating an experience rather than trying to sound perfect. Mistakes are another crucial part of learning natural English. Many people are afraid to speak because they fear making mistakes, but mistakes are actually your teachers. Every time you make an error, you learn something new. You correct yourself, and your language skills improve. Fear of mistakes is the biggest barrier to fluency because it stops you from speaking. And when you do not speak, you do not learn. The most successful English speakers are not those who never make mistakes, but those who are willing to make mistakes, laugh at them, and continue speaking. Mistakes build confidence, and confidence builds fluency. The more mistakes you make, the more natural your English becomes, and the faster you progress. Consistency and daily practice are also key to improving your English. You do not need to spend hours a day studying. Even 10 or 15 minutes every day of speaking, thinking in English, or repeating sentences can make a huge difference over time. English is a skill that improves gradually through constant use. Small steps every day compound into big results. Many people wait for the perfect opportunity, a perfect teacher, or a perfect environment. But real progress comes from your consistent effort. When you make English part of your daily life, whether by talking to yourself, practicing with friends, or listening to conversations, your mind becomes more comfortable with the language. Your words come faster, and your conversations become natural. When you combine listening, storytelling, embracing mistakes, and daily practice, you begin to see a transformation. Speaking English stops being something stressful or intimidating. Your words flow naturally, your confidence grows, and your conversations become enjoyable. You start thinking in English rather than translating from your native language, and that is the moment when English becomes a natural part of your life. Remember that natural English speaking is not about sounding like someone else or being perfect. It is about expressing your ideas clearly, connecting with people, and enjoying the process. Every conversation is an opportunity to improve, to learn, and to grow. And when you focus on communication instead of perfection, your English becomes a tool for connection, opportunity, and confidence. Today, I want to share with you some ideas that can completely change the way you speak English in everyday life and help you feel more confident when you communicate. Many people think that speaking English naturally is something only a few gifted individuals can achieve. But the truth is that anyone can learn to speak English fluently if they focus on the right approach. The key is not memorizing long lists of words or worrying about grammar mistakes, but developing habits that make your English a part of your life. Language is a bridge to connect with others, to share ideas, and to explore opportunities. When you treat English as a tool to communicate rather than a subject to study, it becomes easier, more enjoyable, and more effective. The first principle is listening attentively. Many learners make the mistake of thinking that speaking is the most important skill, but actually listening forms the foundation of natural speaking. When you listen to conversations, podcasts, movies, or news, you start understanding the natural rhythm, pronunciation, and flow of the language. Listening also helps you learn idioms, phrases, and expressions that are rarely found in textbooks. For example, when you hear someone say a simple phrase like, "How's it going?" instead of, "How are you?" you understand the casual way people communicate in real life. I remember when I started practicing English, I spent hours just listening to radio shows, watching TV series, and even repeating phrases under my breath. At first, I struggled, but gradually my brain started to pick up patterns, expressions, and sentence structures, which later helped me speak more confidently. Listening is not passive. It is an active skill that teaches you the real use of language and prepares you to respond naturally. Another important idea is to speak like you are telling a story. People remember stories, experiences, and emotions much more than lists of words or perfect sentences. When you approach English as storytelling, you focus on sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and your observations rather than trying to impress others with vocabulary. Stories give your words meaning, and meaning makes your communication engaging. Even if your grammar is not perfect, your audience will connect with you if your story is clear and heartfelt. For instance, when you talk about your day, your challenges, or an interesting experience, you naturally use words and phrases that make sense in context. Storytelling allows your English to flow naturally and reduces the stress of speaking because you are concentrating on the message rather than perfection. A third key idea is to embrace mistakes. Many people are afraid of speaking English because they worry about making errors, but mistakes are actually a necessary part of learning. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve, to notice what needs attention, and to grow stronger in your communication skills. Fear of mistakes often stops learners from speaking, and when you do not speak, you do not progress. Some of the most confident English speakers are those who have made countless mistakes, learned from them, and kept practicing. Mistakes are signs that you are taking action, and action is what leads to improvement. The more you speak and make mistakes, the faster you gain confidence and the more natural your English becomes over time. Learning is not about avoiding mistakes. It is about learning from them and continuing to speak. The fourth principle is daily practice, even in small steps. You do not need to spend hours each day. 10 or 15 minutes every day thinking in English, speaking aloud, or repeating phrases can make a huge difference over time. Consistent practice creates habits, and habits create fluency. Many people wait for the perfect moment, perfect teacher, or perfect environment. But fluency is built by the small, consistent actions that you take every day. Speaking English daily helps your mind think in the language, helps your tongue get used to forming sentences, and gradually builds your confidence. Even simple routines like describing your surroundings, talking to yourself, or practicing short dialogues can significantly improve your natural speaking skills. When you combine listening attentively, speaking like a storyteller, embracing mistakes, and practicing consistently, something wonderful happens. Your English becomes more fluid, your confidence grows, and your conversations become enjoyable. You stop worrying about being perfect and start focusing on connection, understanding, and sharing ideas. Thinking in English rather than translating from your native language becomes easier, and your communication feels natural. Natural English speaking is not about sounding like someone else. It is about expressing your thoughts clearly, connecting with people genuinely, and enjoying the learning journey. Every conversation is an opportunity to improve, to learn, and to grow. Today, I want to speak about a subject that is close to the hearts of many people who are learning English, and that is how to make your everyday conversations more natural, confident, and effective. Many learners believe that speaking English fluently requires a perfect accent, flawless grammar, and an endless vocabulary. But the truth is that real communication does not depend on perfection, it depends on clarity, confidence, and connection. You can express your ideas clearly, even with simple words, if you use them correctly, if you listen carefully, and if you focus on making the other person understand your message. English is a tool, a bridge, a way to share ideas, make friends, and create opportunities. And when you see it this way, learning becomes exciting, practical, and enjoyable. One of the most important habits for natural English speaking is listening attentively. Many learners spend all their time speaking, trying to memorize phrases, or practicing grammar, but they neglect the power of listening. Listening allows you to absorb how people actually speak, the expressions they use, the rhythm of the language, and the tone of conversations. When you listen to native speakers in movies, podcasts, or conversations, you learn the natural flow of English that books and classes cannot teach. For example, you start noticing how people shorten words, change intonation, and express emotions through language. Listening also builds understanding and empathy because you begin to recognize the feelings behind words. I remember when I first tried to speak English, I spent hours just listening and repeating phrases. Even if I didn't understand everything at first, gradually my brain started to pick up patterns, sentence structures, and pronunciation, which later helped me communicate more naturally. Listening is not passive. It is an active process that forms the foundation of confident speaking. Another key principle is to speak like you are telling a story. Storytelling is powerful because it makes your words meaningful and relatable. People remember stories, not lists of words or perfect sentences. When you speak about your experiences, ideas, challenges, or observations, you engage your listeners and make your conversation interesting. Even if your grammar is not perfect, your message will be understood and appreciated if it is clear and heartfelt. For instance, talking about your day, a recent experience, or an idea you are excited about allows you to use English naturally because the focus is on sharing your thoughts rather than being perfect. Storytelling also reduces stress because it gives your words purpose and context and allows you to express yourself in a way that feels natural and authentic. Mistakes are another essential part of learning to speak English naturally. Many learners are afraid of making mistakes, but mistakes are not failures. They are opportunities to learn, to adjust, and to improve. When you fear mistakes, you hesitate, you stop speaking, and your progress slows down. Confident speakers are not those who never make mistakes, but those who embrace errors, learn from them, and keep speaking. Every mistake teaches you something new, and every correction brings you closer to fluency. Making mistakes is a sign of action, and action is what leads to improvement over time. The more mistakes you make, the more confident you become, and your English becomes natural and effortless. Daily practice is the fourth key principle. Consistency is more important than intensity. You do not need to spend hours each day. Even 10 or 15 minutes of focused practice can create significant results over time. Speaking to yourself, describing your surroundings, thinking in English, or repeating simple sentences can make a big difference. Many learners wait for the perfect time, teacher, or environment. But fluency is built through consistent effort, no matter how small. Daily practice helps your mind think in English, your tongue become familiar with forming sentences, and your confidence grow naturally. English becomes a part of your daily life, not just a skill you study in isolation. When you combine listening attentively, speaking like a storyteller, embracing mistakes, and practicing daily, your English transforms. Conversations become smoother, your confidence grows, and speaking English becomes enjoyable rather than stressful. You start thinking in English, responding naturally, and connecting with people more effectively. Natural English speaking is not about sounding like someone else. It is about expressing your ideas clearly, connecting with others genuinely, and embracing the process of learning. Every interaction is an opportunity to improve, to learn, and to grow. And by focusing on communication, practice, and confidence, your English becomes not just a skill, but a bridge to new experiences, relationships, and opportunities. It is